A small engine mechanic in central Ohio has been repairing lawn mowers for 22 years. His name does not matter for this story. What matters is what sits behind his shop. There is a row of machines lined up against a chain-link fence, 40 or 50 of them at any given time, all abandoned by their owners. These are mowers that customers dropped off for repair and never came back for, because the estimate to fix them exceeded what the machine was worth. He calls it the graveyard. Nearly every mower in that row is less than 4 years old. Some are less than 2, and nearly all of them are from the brands that spend the most money on television commercials, retail displays, and sponsored content. He started keeping an informal count about a decade ago, just a notebook on his workbench where he logs the brand, the model, and the failure that killed the machine. The patterns became obvious within the first year. The same brands fail in the same ways at the same intervals, and they have been doing it consistently for over a decade. The engine seize because the cylinder walls are too thin. The transmissions lock up because the hydrostatic units are sealed at the factory and cannot be serviced. The decks rust through because stamped steel was used where fabricated steel should have been. When customers ask him what mower they should buy next, he gives them the same short list he has been giving for years. It has 5 brands on it. It has not changed. These are not the brands with the biggest advertising budgets or the most shelf space at your local hardware store. They are the brands whose machines almost never end up in the graveyard. He does not see them come through his shop for catastrophic failures. He sees them for blade sharpening, belt replacement, and the kind of routine maintenance that means the machine is working exactly as intended. The gap between what is marketed to you and what actually survives in the field tells you everything you need to know about how this industry operates. The machines that last are not the ones you think. Before we get to that list, you need to understand why it is so short. The lawn mower industry did not accidentally start building machines that fail. It engineered them to fail, one component at a time, over the course of 2 decades. The process started with the deck, which is the steel housing that surrounds the blade, and is the structural foundation of any mower. Through the 1990s, most quality residential mowers used fabricated steel decks, meaning thick steel plate that was cut, bent, and welded into shape. Fabricated decks are heavy, expensive to produce, and nearly indestructible under normal use. Starting in the early 2000s, manufacturers shifted to stamped steel, a process where a thinner sheet of metal is pressed into shape by a machine in seconds. Stamped decks cost a fraction of what fabricated decks cost. They also rust faster, flex under stress, and crack at the stamping seams within 3 to 5 years of regular use. The engines followed the same trajectory. Briggs & Stratton, which supplies the majority of residential mower engines in North America, began transitioning to overhead valve designs with thinner cylinder walls and aluminum bores instead of cast iron sleeves. These engines are lighter and cheaper to manufacture. They also wear faster, overheat more easily, and become uneconomical to rebuild when they fail. A cast iron sleeved engine from 1998 could be rebored and fitted with new rings for under $150. A modern aluminum bore engine that scores its cylinder wall is scrap. The transmissions tell the same story. Serviceable gear drive transmissions were replaced with sealed hydrostatic units that cannot be opened, flushed, or repaired. When they fail, you replace the entire unit for $300 to $500, or you throw the mower away. This did not happen because engineers forgot how to build durable machines. It happened because big box retailers demanded lower wholesale prices every single year. A mower that retailed for $400 in 2008 still retails for $400 in 2026. The price stayed the same. The metal got thinner, the engines got smaller. The transmissions became disposable. The machine that reaches your garage today looks like a lawnmower, but it is not built like one. There is a question that separates honest mower advice from marketing. It is not what do you recommend to customers. It is what do you own. When mechanics answer that question, 2 brands come up more than any others. The first is Honda. Honda's residential mowers, the HRN and HRX series, are built around the GCV170 and GCV200 engines. These are not the most powerful small engines on the market. They are the most overbuilt. Honda machines its engine parts to tighter gaps than the mowing task requires. The metal is thicker than it needs to be. The oil system holds more than the minimum. This means the engine runs cooler, wears slower, and lasts longer than anything else in its price range. The HRX models use a twin-blade system called micro-cut that produces a finer mulch than single-blade designs. But the detail mechanics care about most is the deck. Honda uses a composite material called Nexite instead of steel. It does not rust, it does not dent, it does not crack. Mechanics who have been in the trade for 15 or 20 years say they have never replaced a Nexite deck. The second brand is Toro, and the models that earn the trust are the Recycler and the Time Master. The Recycler has been in production for decades, and its current form uses a Briggs & Stratton engine. But it is not the same engine you get on a budget mower. Toro specs a version tuned to its own standards, with different cam timing and airflow than the base model that other brands pull off the shelf. The feature that sets Toro apart in the eyes of repair shops is the Personal Pace self-propel system. Most self-propel mowers use a belt to drive the wheels. Belts stretch, slip, and snap. They are the #1 reason self-propel mowers end up in the shop. Toro's Personal Pace uses a mechanical gear drive instead. It responds to how hard you push the handle and has almost no wear parts. Mechanics see these mowers come in for oil changes and blade work. That's it. That is the whole list of problems. The third brand on the list comes from a company that has been building outdoor power equipment since 1689. And that history matters because it explains why their machines are engineered the way they are. Husqvarna earns its place on the mechanics list for a specific set of reasons that have nothing to do with heritage and everything to do with what is inside the housing. Their residential zero-turn mowers and riding mowers in the upper tier use fabricated steel decks, not stamped. The welds are visible and deliberate. The steel is thick enough that mechanics describe it as commercial grade dropped into a residential frame. On their higher-end models, Husqvarna specs Kawasaki engines rather than sourcing the cheapest available supplier each production year. The hydrostatic transmissions come from Hydro Gear, which is the same manufacturer that supplies units to commercial mowing fleets that run 8 to 10 hours a day. These are not consumer-grade components dressed up with a premium label. They are the same parts that survive daily professional use, installed in a machine that will only see a fraction of that demand. The fourth brand is the one that surprises people, because it is not a gas brand at all. Ego makes the list, and the mechanics who put it there will tell you they resisted it for years before the evidence became impossible to ignore. Ego's 56-volt battery platform powers a lineup that includes the Select Cut push mower and the Z6 zero-turn. The reason mechanics trust it is almost paradoxical. There is nothing to fix. A brushless electric motor has no carburetor to gum up with stale fuel, no oil to change, no air filter to clog, no spark plug to foul, and no pull cord to snap. The failure points that fill repair shops 5 days a week simply do not exist on these machines. Mechanics see Ego mowers come in for blade sharpening and nothing else. The 56-volt ARC lithium batteries have now crossed the 5-year threshold in real-world use, which was the line mechanics were waiting for before they would trust the technology with their own money. The batteries hold their capacity. The motors do not burn out. The machines just work. And for a mechanic who has spent 2 decades watching everything else fall apart, that is enough. The fifth brand on the list is the one mechanics argue about, and the argument is always about where you draw the line. John Deere makes the list, but only above a specific model tier. The X300 and X500 series riding mowers and the Z300 series zero-turns use Kawasaki engines, heavy-gauge fabricated decks, and transmissions built with serviceable components. These are machines designed for people who mow an acre or more and expect the mower to still be running in 12 to 15 years. Mechanics trust them because the parts are accessible, the engineering is conservative, and the failure rates are low. But the moment you drop below that line into the Deere 100 series, the ones sold at big box stores with the familiar green and yellow paint. You are buying a different machine entirely. Those models use budget engines, stamped decks, and sealed transmissions that are functionally identical to what every other mass-market brand offers. The name on the hood is the same. What is underneath is not. This is where the conversation shifts from what to buy to what to avoid, because the pattern mechanics see on the brands they do not trust is just as consistent as the pattern on the brands they do. The warning signs are specific. Brands that change engine suppliers from year to year are chasing the lowest bid, not the best fit. Brands that use proprietary fasteners on access panels are trying to stop you from opening the machine, which means they do not want you to see what is inside. Brands whose warranty service requires shipping the mower to a regional center rather than dropping it at a local dealer have no real service network at all. Mechanics will tell you that Troy-Bilt was a respectable name 20 years ago. Then it was acquired by MTD, which was later absorbed into Stanley Black & Decker, and with each acquisition the steel got thinner and the parts got cheaper. Craftsman followed the same path after leaving Sears. The name survived. The quality behind it did not. What you are buying in those cases is not a machine. It is a logo printed on the same components that come off the same assembly lines as every other disposable mower on the market. Knowing the 5 brands is useful. Knowing how to evaluate any mower without a list is better, because the list could change in 5 years and the skills will not. Start with where you buy. Purchase from a dealer that has a service shop in the back, not a big box store with a teenager in a vest pointing you toward aisle 14. The dealer relationship is your only leverage after the sale. A dealer who repairs what they sell has an incentive to sell you something that does not come back. A retailer who sells you a mower and never sees you again has no such incentive. When you stand in front of a mower, look at the deck first. Flip it over if you can. Fabricated steel has visible welds and thick edges. Stamped steel is smooth, thin, and light. If the deck feels like you could flex it with your hands, it will not survive 5 seasons of rocks, roots, and wet grass. Check the engine. Find the model number stamped on the block and look it up before you buy. The brand name on the mower's hood is not always the brand that made the engine, and the engine is everything. Ask the dealer what transmission is inside. If they cannot tell you, or if the answer is that it is a sealed unit, you are buying a component that will be thrown away when it fails, rather than repaired. Look for sealed bearings on the wheels and spindles. Bushings are cheaper to manufacture and wear out in 2 to 3 seasons. Bearings last the life of the machine. If you are buying battery-powered, verify that the battery warranty covers at least 5 years and that it covers capacity loss, not just total failure. A battery that holds 60% of its original charge at year 4 is technically functional but practically useless. Budget 1 to 2% of the mower's purchase price per year for blade sharpening and basic upkeep. The brands on this list last because their owners do the minimum. They are not indestructible. The mower industry has figured out that most buyers compare features and price, but never look at components and serviceability. The brands that survive this list have not fully given in to the pressure to build disposable machines, but even they face that pressure every year. The real skill is not memorizing 5 names. It is learning to look inside the machine, because the name on the housing is just paint. The mower that lasts forever is the one built by people who assumed you would never look inside it, and were wrong.